There is a slab of pork belly in the butcher's case tonight, a long heavy piece, striped fat and meat, and it costs less by the pound than near anything else with meat in it. Most folks walk past it. They think it is too fatty, too much trouble, a thing for restaurants, and they carry home the lean expensive cuts and pay 3 times as much for a third as much good. And I want to tell you tonight that this one cheap slab, this thing they pass by, once fed my family for the better part of a week. Not 1 meal, not 2. 9, if you counted them, and we did count them because in our house you counted everything. It is called Chashu, pork belly, rolled and tied and simmered, slow and low in soy and sweetness, until it is so tender you can cut it with the side of a chopstick, dark and glossy and melting. Folks know it now as the pink-edged slice that sits on a bowl of ramen, one slice floating there, and they think that is what chashu is, a garnish, a topping, a single slice. That is not what chashu is. That is what is left of chashu after a shop got hold of it. Chashu is a whole belly, and a whole belly is not a topping. It is a week. Now here is the thing I want you to understand before we cook, because the whole of this video lives inside it, and once you see it you will understand every cheap braise there ever was. When you cook that pork belly, you make 3 things at once, and only one of them is the pork. You make the meat, yes, but you also make a pot of dark, rich, deeply flavored liquid that the meat cooked in, and that liquid is not waste, it is treasure. It is half the reason to do this. And you make the fat, rendered out and floating, which is a cooking fat finer than anything you can buy. 3 things from one slab, and the person who only takes the meat and pours the rest away has thrown away 2/3 of what they made. The shop takes the slice, we take the whole thing and everything it gives. 1 pork belly, soy, mirin, sake, sugar, the same 4 bottles I am always going on about, a knob of ginger, a stalk of green onion. That is the list. And it is going to give us meat and a sauce and a fat, and it is going to keep giving for a week. That is the old arithmetic, and no shop taught it to us. Thrift taught it. There is nothing hard in it. It is nearly all waiting. Let me show you, step by step. We did not eat much meat when I was small, and when a whole belly came into the house, it was an event. And I remember my mother's face when she cooked it, which was not the face of someone making one supper. It was the face of someone doing sums. She would tie it up with string, slow and careful, and simmer it half the day at the back of the stove so the whole house smelled of it, and we children would circle that pot like cats. And I thought then that we were about to have a feast. And we were not. We had a few slices each over rice, and that was supper, and it was wonderful, and it was gone. But the pot was not gone, and that was the thing I did not understand. The feast was not that night, the feast was the week. Because that one belly, cooked once on one afternoon, reappeared at our table again and again in shapes I did not even recognize as the same pork, and my mother had planned every one of them before she ever tied the string. That is what I carry, that she was not cooking a supper, she was cooking a foundation and laying it down carefully so that it would hold up a whole week of meals with almost no further work. And a woman who can turn one cheap slab into a week of suppers, while everyone thinks she simply made a nice pork dinner, is doing something close to magic, and doing it quietly, which is the only way she knew. Before I go further, I want to say one quick thing. The old ways my family kept, there is more of it than fits in any one video. I have gathered the whole of it into a book, and you will find it at the link below. The book is the long version. If you want it, it is there. I will not mention it again. Now, the belly, and here is the first rule, and it is the whole foundation. Buy it fatty and buy it striped. You want a slab with good, clear bands of fat running all the way through it. Meat and fat and meat and fat. Do not shy from the fat here. Seek it out. Why? Because in a long, slow cook, the fat is everything. It melts down slowly through the hours and bastes the meat from the inside and keeps it moist, and it turns from a hard white thing into something soft and silken that melts on the tongue. A lean piece of pork cooked this long comes out dry and stringy and sad. A fatty piece comes out tender and glossy and rich. The fat is not the price you pay for the cheap cut. The fat is the reason the cheap cut is better. Now, roll it and tie it. Roll the slab up on itself into a long log and tie it round with kitchen string every inch or so. And here is why we bother. A tied roll holds its shape through the long cook and does not fall apart, and it cooks evenly all through, and it gives you those beautiful round slices at the end. It is a few minutes of fiddling with string, and it is worth it. If the string troubles you, leave it flat, and it will still be good, only less handsome. Now, the first real step, and folks skip it and should not, you brown it first. In a hot, dry pan, or with the barest film of oil, you sear that roll all over, turning it until every side is deep golden brown. Why? Because the browning builds a deep savory flavor into the surface of the meat that you get no other way, and that flavor goes down into the whole pot and into the sauce and into everything you will make from it all week. A belly put into the pot pail gives a pale, flat result. A belly browned dark first gives a deep, rich one. It is 5 minutes, and it pays you back 9 times over. And there is a second gift to the browning. A great deal of the first fat renders out into the pan as you do it. Pour that off and keep it. That is your first jar of pork fat, and we have not even started the real cook. Now, into the pot. The rolled belly and water to nearly cover it, and here come the 4 bottles. A good pour of soy, a good pour of mirin, a good pour of sake, a spoonful or 2 of sugar. Then the ginger, sliced, skin and all, and the green part of a green onion, and a clove of garlic if you like. The ginger and the onion are not for flavor alone. They lift the heaviness off the pork and take away any strong smell, and they are the old way, and they belong here. And now the whole secret of the cook, and it is the same secret as every good braise and every good broth, so hear me once and hold it forever. You never let it boil hard, never. You bring it up, and then you turn it down as low as it will go, and still show a lazy bubble now and then, and you keep it there. Why? Because a hard rolling boil seizes the meat and toughens it and makes it stringy, and it churns the fat into a greasy cloud. A bare, gentle simmer melts the meat slowly into tenderness and leaves the liquid clear and rich. Hard boil, tough and greasy. Bare simmer, tender and clean. That is the whole of it, and it is the difference between chashu and a boiled disappointment. And a lid, but not a tight one, a bit of parchment laid right on the surface, or the lid set ajar, so it simmers but does not boil dry. And then you wait. 2 hours at the least, 3 is better. Turn the roll now and then, so all of it spends time under the liquid. And you do not stand there. You go and do other things, while the house fills with the smell, and the meat goes slowly, slowly to silk. This is not work. This is waiting, and the pot does the work. You will know it is done when a chopstick slides into the meat with no resistance at all, and the whole roll gives when you press it. Then you turn off the heat, and here is a piece of old patience that is worth everything. You let it cool down in its own liquid. You do not lift it out hot. Why? Because as it cools in the liquid, the meat drinks the flavor back into itself, deeper than it ever could while cooking, and it firms up so you can slice it clean instead of having it fall to shreds. A belly rested overnight in its liquid in the cold box is 100 times better than one sliced straight from the hot pot. The waiting is not idleness. The waiting is where half the flavor happens. Now, here is where the shop stops, and we begin. The shop lifts out the meat, slices it, and that is chashu to them. But look at what is in that pot. First, the fat has risen to the top and set into a firm white cap in the cold box. You lift that off in a single sheet, and that is a jar of the finest pork fat there is, and it goes in the cold box, and all week you fry your rice in it, your vegetables in it, your morning egg in it, and everything you touch tastes of that deep browned pork, free off the top of the pot, and beneath it that dark glossy liquid, and this is the treasure, this is the tear, the chashu sauce, and it is worth as much as the meat. You bring it back to a simmer and reduce it down a little until it is a thin glossy glaze, and you have a bottle of the most useful thing in the kitchen. It is not waste. Nothing here is waste. The leavings of one good thing are only the makings of the next, and in this pot the leavings are half the point. So now let me show you the 9 meals, because this is the part that matters. This is the whole reason we did it, and this is the arithmetic my mother did while she tied the string. The first night, chashu don, warm slices laid over hot rice, a spoon of that dark sauce poured over, a scatter of green onion, and if you have it, a soft egg. That is a supper fit for anyone, and it is the meal everyone pictures. That is one. The next day, the box. Cold slices are wonderful cold, and they go into the lunch box over rice with a little sauce, and they are as good at noon as they were hot the night before. That is 2 and 3 and 4, for a belly gives enough cold slices for several boxes across the week. Then the ends. Every roll has ragged end bits that do not slice handsome, and those are not scraps. They are the makings of the best fried rice of the week. Chop them small, fry them in that pork fat off the top of the pot with rice and an egg and a splash of the sauce, and you have a supper out of the bits nobody wanted. That is 5. Then ramen or udon or any bowl of noodles in broth, because now you have everything a bowl needs. A slice of the chashu on top, a spoon of the tare stirred into the broth to season the whole bowl, and the green onion, and it tastes like the shop, and it costs you nothing because you already had it. That is 6 and 7, for there is enough for more than one bowl. Then a steamed bun or a lettuce wrap, or a fried rice again with the very last chopped bits, a slice tucked into anything at all, a cold slab of it eaten standing at the counter by whoever gets to the cold box first. That is 8 and 9. And when even the meat is gone, the sauce is not, and the fat is not. And a spoon of that sauce and a bit of that fat will flavor a pot of plain vegetables or a bowl of plain rice, and carry the memory of the pork into meals after the pork itself has ended. 1 belly. 9 meals and a tale of good flavor after that. That is the whole trade. Now I want to be plain about who profits from you believing that chashu is 1 slice on a bowl of ramen. There is a very good business in that single slice. The shops know exactly what a whole belly gives and exactly what it costs, and they sell it back to you a slice at a time at a price that would have made my mother laugh out loud, or perhaps cry, I am not sure which. And there is the vacuum pack in the supermarket now, 3 thin slices in plastic, sold as if chashu were a delicate specialty rather than a cheap slab of belly and an afternoon of waiting. And the whole of it rests on the same notion that this is a restaurant food, a difficult food, a thing best bought a slice at a time. But you have just watched it. A cheap slab, 4 bottles and a pot left to itself for 3 hours. Nobody schemed to take a whole week of meals and sell it back to a people 1 slice at a time. It is worse than that. It is just a system nobody has to coordinate. A slow drift where meat got cheap in the shop and time got scarce in the home, and the slow braise went unpracticed and unpassed down, until a thing that once fed 6 children for a week became a single pink slice floating in a bowl, admired and forgotten. It was never 1 slice. It was always a week for those who kept the old knowing. The women who fed this country stretched 1 cheap slab across 9 meals and 3 byproducts, and threw away nothing, not the fat, not the liquid, not the ragged ends, and we are only beginning to remember how. Now tell me something down in the comments. In your bowl of ramen, is the chashu meant to sit on top and be eaten last as the prize, or do you push it down under the hot broth at the very start to warm it through and let it soften? Folks have very strong feelings on this, and I would dearly love to know where you stand. And tell me this too. What was the 1 cheap thing your family cooked once and ate all week, the thing that came back to the table in a different shape every day? Every thrifty kitchen had one. Tell me. Next time, I am going to show you the soft egg that sits beside that pork, the one with the jammy orange middle and the deep amber skin. And the secret is that it is cooked in the very same sauce we made tonight. Nothing wasted, everything feeding the next thing. Peeled and dropped into that dark tare and left to sit until it drinks in the color and the flavor and becomes the finest thing in the whole bowl. Next time, the marinated egg. Until then, take good care of the ones at your table and keep a kitchen that knows 1 cheap slab in patient hands was never a slice. It was a week